Hello everyone. So in this video, we are going to discuss utilization of assessment data. Now, our objectives for today's lesson, at the end of chapter 10, students are expected to provide meaning to test results using norm reference and criterion reference interpretation. Now, in utilization assessment data, um, in interpretation of assessment results, one of the difficult tasks in assessment is interpretation of assessment data. Teacher must ensure that their interpretations are both accurate and meaningful. If interpreted incorrectly, assessment won't be much of any use. Learning difficulties may not be recognized and addressed promptly. Learners may not attain optimal learning. Now, students are interested to know what is my score in the test. In this chapter, we shall look into the types of test scores. However, the more pressing question is, what does the score mean? This chapter shall likewise present test score interpretations using norm and criterion reference interpretation. So, test score interpretations are vital not just for the students concerned but also for the parents. A pupil who receive an overall score in the 60th percentile in mathematics would place the learner in the average group. The child performance is as good or better than 60% of the students in the group. A closer look into the sub-skill score of the pupil can help teachers and parents in identifying problem areas. So, like for example, a child may be good in addition and subtraction, but he or she may be struggling with multiplication and division. So, that's the example in utilization assessment data. Now, there are types of score: row and percentage score, percentile rank, standard score, and we have a sub type of score. Letter A, Z-score; B, T-score; C, stanins; D, normal curve; and E, developmental scores. Now, row and percentage scores. Row score Row scores are obtained by simply counting the number of correct response in a test following the scoring directions. Percentage score is useful in describing a student performance based on criterion. Um, so a student who gets, like for example, a student who gets 30 out of 50 items in math test correctly obviously gets a row score of 30. This means the student was able to answer 60% of the item accurately, which is percentage score. So the percentage score is useful in describing a student performance based on a criterion. However, the problem with raw and percentage scores is they do not provide adequate information about student performance. So here are the example of raw and percentage score on how to compute. Now, for example, we have two example here. Number one, John got a score of 40 out of 50. Now, the computation in raw and percentage scores. So, this 40 represent as the score of the score John score 40 out of 50. So we are going to divide. So 40 divide 50 because 50 items. John got 40. And 40 divide 50 is equal to 0.08. I mean 0.8. So in row and percentage scores, palagi po natin na i-multiply by 100 once na mag-compute tayo ng percentage. So 0.8 times 100 so is equal to 80%. So ganito lang po ka-easy kung paano mag-compute ng row and percentage scores. Now, in example number 2, Carl got a score of 15 out of 30. Same computation in example number 1. So 15 divide 30 is equal to 0.5. 0.5 times 100 is equal to 50%. Now, in percentile ranks give the percent of scores that are at or below a row or standard scores. It is used to rank student in reference. This should not be confused with the percentage of correct answers. So a score of 35 or standard score of 1 falls in the 80th percentile, which means the student scored as well or better than 80%, 84% student in the sample. So we could also say that the student's score is in the upper 16% of the norm group. So if there were 200 students who took the test, percentile rank of 84 indicates that the student scored higher than 168 students. So please take note in percentile rank that percentile rank do not represent equal unit. They should not be subjected to arithmetic operation. So in standard scores, a standard score is derived score which utilize the normal curve to show how students' performance compares with the distribution of scores above and below. The arithmetic mean among the standard scores are the z-score, t-score, and stanin. Now, let's come now to the sub-type of score. We have letter A, z-score. Okay, the z-score gives the number of standard deviations of a test score above or below the mean. The formula of z-score, z is equal to x minus x all over s, where x is the score and another x is the average score and s is the standard deviation. A negative z-score means it is below the average, while a positive z value means it is above the average. Now, the computation in z-score, so in a 50 item math test where the mean is 25 and the standard deviation is, hindi po siya 10, 15 po siya. So, mayroon tayong type error. So, isa-substitute po natin, which is the x is equal to 50 minus 25. the standard deviation of 15. So 25 over 15 is equal to 1.6. So ganyan po kasimple kung paano mag-compute ng z-score. Dito naman po sa t-score, a t-score is scaled score. It mean is 50 and the standard deviation is 10. The t-score have numerous applications. But what they mainly allow us is to compare numbers more easily. We scale the numbers which can come from different measurements or scales, and we unify them in the same average. Now, the computation in t-score, alamin po muna natin ang formula ng t-score. So, ang formula ng t-score, ito po, t is equal to 10z plus 50. Bakit po 10z at 50? Ang 10 at 50 ay constant term ng t-score. So kung nakuha po natin, kanina yung z-score is 1.6. So nag-conclude po ako ng sarili ko. So a z-score of 3, para sa akin, yung z-score of 3, ang z ay isa-substitute po natin ng 3. So 10 times 3 plus 50. So 30 plus 50 is equal to 80. So ganun din po kadali kung paano mag-compute ng t-score. Ngayon po, dito po tayo sa istanin. So dito po sa istanin, same din po siya. But iba na din po yung constant term niya. So ang formula ng istanin is 2z plus 5. So S is equal to 2 times 3 plus 5 is equal to 6 plus 5 is equal to 8. Excuse me. Now, normal curve equivalent. So, dito po tayo sa subtype of score in letter D. The normal curve equivalent, NCE, is normalized standard score within the range 1 minus 99. Within the range of 199. It has mean of 50 and the standard deviation of 21.06. Quotation could be exercised when converting a row score to NCE or normal curve equivalent because the letter requires a representative national sample. So, for example, an NCE or the normal curve equivalent of 30 in reading is twice as far from the mean compared to an NCE or the normal curve equivalent of 40 in mathematics. The student score in mathematics was 10 points higher than in reading, but both are still below the average score of 50. Now, in developmental scores, a grade equivalent or a GE, grade equivalent GE describe a learner's development growth. It gives a picture as where he or she is on achievement continuum. For example, if second grader obtain a grade equivalent to 4.2 in language in mechanics, it means her is typical fourth grader. In 4.2, the 4 is the fourth grader. And the 2 4.2. So the right side of a point, decimal point, which is 2, 2 means months in instruction. So the important term in developmental scores, note that GE is an estimate of learners' location and the development. Development continuum and not grade level where he or she should be placed. Now, let's come now to the types of test score interpretation. We have norm reference interpretation and criterion reference interpretation. So, norm reference interpretation. The norm originated from Latin word norma, which means precept or rule. It pertains to the average score in a set. Norm reference interpretation are explanations of a learner's performance in comparison with other learners of the same age or grade. A learner's knowledge is gauged in terms of his/her position in the norm group. The use of standard score and percentile rank are common in norm reference interpretation. As pointed out, norm reference evaluations determine the learner's place or rank. Assessment instruments that lend itself to this kind of interpretation include standardized aptitude and achievement test, teacher-made survey test, interest inventories, and adjustment inventories. Now, according to Kubizin and Boric 2010, a norm reference assessment tends to be general as it covers a wider scope of content, measuring a variety of skills. So Kubizin and Boric 2010, a norm reference assessment tends to be general as it covers a wider scope of content, measuring a variety of skills. Because there are several objectives covered, only one or two items are sampled for each learning objective. Moreover, difficulty of test item varies and may likely result to greater variability in test score. This implies that scores are disappeared and score standing become more telling. Besides, the purpose of norm reference measures is to discriminate between high and low achievement. Now, according to Nitko and Brockhart 2011, stated 5 guidelines when interpreting norm reference test score. Number 1, detect any unexpected patterns of score. Be on the lookout for unusual, especially extreme score. If a student's test score does not seem to corroborate teacher's observation of student performance, then the teacher should reflect on his/her instruction. Number 2, determine the reasons for score patterns. There is a reason why learner is underperforming in one or more subject. The student may have learning disabilities or problem on motivation. Number 3, do not expect surprise for every student. The teacher must know how each student is performing in his her class. Number four, a small difference in subset scores should be viewed as chance uh, fluctuation. Differences in test score may or may not be statistically significant to call or instructionally intervention. Number six, use information from various assessment and observation to explain performance on other assessment. It would not be shocking to learn that the student with poor writing skill in English and Filipino would obtain a low score in the easy portion of test. Now, dito na po tayo sa criterion reference interpretation. So the word criterion came from the Greek word criterion, means standard. And also, criterion reference interpretations provide meaning to test score by describing what learner can and cannot do in light of standard. According to Nitko and Brohart 2011, criterion reference scores include percentage correct, speed of performance, quality ratings, and precision of performance. Now, add more idea about criterion reference interpretation. Criterion referencing is used in diagnosing students' needs and monitoring their progress. The foregoing discussion revealed that the differences between the two major frames of reference. According to Miller, Lin, and Granland, 2009, both requires a specification of the achievement domain to be measured, as well as relevant and representative sample of test. So that's all po for today's lesson. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something in this lesson. Thank you.